Hi folks, Canadian Prepper here. My friends, if you want a glimpse into what the future is going to look like, look no further than France, where they're getting in fistfights over fuel shortages at the gas pump because the unions are protesting their wages that aren't keeping pace with inflation, and it's not even winter yet. The government is saying, I don't think we can give you what you want, so guess what? That means political instability is likely on the horizon, and NATO is about to implode. Or you could look to Shanghai right now, where they're currently stockpiling water. They are hoarding water. You got pictures coming out of Shanghai with guys in grocery carts stacked to the nines with bottled water because they're concerned about this drought situation that is currently ongoing. You also have this apparent intrusion of seawater into their inland freshwater reservoirs. Now, the government is saying, don't worry, there's nothing to worry about here. But some people are suspecting that it might have something to do with fellas like this, rocking the shotties. And I don't know if they're using, real ammo in there or not. But apparently they're corralling people into quarantine camps at gunpoint as per usual. So you can look to there, or I guess you could look to the United States, where people are being robbed at gunpoint while eating their fried chicken, not for their money, but for their fried chicken. I guess you could always look to the black hole that is on the border between Ukraine and Russia, where all of the world superpowers, Russia, China, United States, Ukraine, are fighting for world domination. You could look there. Or I guess you could just look in your 401k or your portfolio and cry for a little bit. I guess you could look there, but the future doesn't look good. Now, guys, there's something circulating around the internet right now. This is from the Russian Civil Defense Ministry. Apparently, this is being posted at City Hall, shopping centers, mass transit stations, and the like, and it is warning people what to do in case of a nuclear radiological emergency. Now, I fact-checked this with a Russian friend of mine who's from the old country, and he said that this is actually quite commonplace because in Russia they have a culture of preparedness. So is this anything to get alarmed about? Yes, it is, because NATO is currently conducting a nuclear exercise, probably against the interests of Russia, and that's likely putting them on high alert. Because, of course, any exercise right now is easily misconstrued as an offensive. So, well, I think that this story might be a little bit overblown because apparently this is something they teach their kids in school to give you a sense of exactly what they're saying here on this piece of paper. Is they're telling people what to do in case of a nuclear, biological, radiological, or chemical emergency. Turn off the lights, gas, water, and heaters. Close the windows and doors tightly. Cover the gaps around the doors. Vent with wet cloth. Use personal protective equipment. Take cover in the nearest protective structure, buried room, or other premises in an underground space, including the subway. And did you guys know that the Moscow subway in some places is buried 73 feet deep? Now, I don't know if they did that in anticipation of nuclear Armageddon, but they are much better prepared. And at least this provides a lot more detail than that New York City PSA that was released. So, like I say, is this a cause for acute alarm? I don't think so. But in light of everything else that is going on, there's enough to be alarmed about when it comes to nuclear Armageddon. But apparently this is something which is quite common in Russia, okay? Now, in terms of my 6-month predictions for what is going to happen, I realized in that video I was rather long-winded. It was like a 35-minute video. It should have been like a 3-minute video. I was just talking way too much, kind of like what I'm doing now. But I'll try to condense it down for you. So what happens now? There's been a reality check in Ukraine. They've realized, oh crap, the Russians haven't run out of missiles. And I explained why in that video I just did. Russians are they're definitely not going to run out of artillery. They may at some point start to dwindle in their supply of precision-guided missiles, but I'm highly doubtful of that. People are saying there's a chip shortage that's contributing to that, but the chips that they would use in those, I don't think require the same level of sophistication as these supercomputers that the race for chip supremacy entails. Okay, I think it's more ado with stuff that can be made in China or anywhere else, probably even in Russia. So I don't foresee them running out of precision-guided missiles. The Russians are going to do a major offensive in the not-so-distant future when the ground freezes. It's likely that the Belarusians are going to get involved because they're concerned about the Poles getting involved. You have a rift developing between Poland and Germany that very well may lead to the implosion of NATO, which of course would lead Poland and Baltic states to be sitting ducks for Russia that will now be even more powerful after they conquer west or the eastern part of Ukraine, which will likely all culminate in midwinter, January to March. Around this time, people are starting to freeze their ass off in Europe because now, of course, there's another leak that sprung up in one of the main oil pipelines from Russia to Germany, conveniently and coincidentally on the territory of Poland. That leak sprung up. So is this beginning of a big tiff between Poland and Germany? Who knows? Regardless, we know they're going to go ahead with the price caps on oil. That is going to cause major unrest. It's likely that this thing in France is going to start to blow up in Macron's face. And you're just going to start to see the dissolution of NATO. They're going to start fighting with one another. The alliance is going to falter. And they can say Article 5 till the cows come home. But at the end of the day, are they really going to honor it? So what's going to happen is the United States is probably going to send over a bunch of troops. You're going to see massive troop deployments maybe come early next year, definitely after the midterms. That's when you're going to see them really start to put more money into the war. You got Zelensky asking for $38 billion, just $38 billion, because, you know, we need this money to reconstruct our schools and do all this other stuff. Meanwhile, people in Africa are descending into famine. They've never had schools there, yet we're supposed to send this guy more money. It just makes absolutely no sense whatsoever when he's not willing to negotiate at all. And we all know that if the Russians do lose the war, it's going to lead to nuclear Armageddon. So the same people saying that Russia is running out of missiles, and when Russia runs out of missiles, it's nuclear Armageddon, are the ones saying that we're not going to negotiate. So where does that leave us? That leaves us at nuclear war if you believe Russia is not running out of missiles. If you believe Russia is running out of missiles, but as I've said, they likely are not. We've only seen the beginning of the major Russian offensive. I broke it down yesterday. I showed you guys the map where the hundreds of thousands of Russian soldiers are currently stationed around their massive country. They've yet to deploy a fraction of those forces to the front line. Once they do, this thing is going to be over rather quickly. Once they commit to that, once Putin gets the green light from his Kremlin warhawk buddies that, hey, it's time to go, then they're going to get it done. And then, of course, there's going to be an uproar in parts of Europe, but there's going to be other parts of Europe freezing their ass off that are saying, hey, you know, I'm freezing. I can't afford to buy food. This sucks. I don't want to support this war anymore. They're going to take to the streets because at least, you know, if you're moving, then you can keep yourself warm. People are going to realize it's better to freeze my ass off outside, get out, shake it off a bit, and protest and potentially riot than sit in here and freeze to death. Now, I'm being a little bit dramatic. I don't think it's going to get to the point where anybody's freezing to death in Europe, although I'm sure there's some sort of correlation between poor health outcomes and just a marginal reduction in room temperature, which is what I think they are enforcing in some places. You're going to have to actually, you know, go below room temperature. So it's not looking good anyways. I've been contacted by somebody who works for the second largest electrical and LNG, that's liquid natural gas materials and service distribution. They are saying that the lead times for transformers are insane, up to 15 months out, and that the prices have increased by a factor of 4 to 5. So if Europe thinks that it's going to be saved by liquid natural gas, they are as delusional as the people who think that the Russians are just going to tuck tail and go home once they've run out of missiles and not look to their stockpile of 5,000 tactical nuclear warheads and deploy at least one. Totally delusional. The White House has released its new national security strategy. I wonder how Russia is going to feel about Washington's plans to contain Russia and compete with the Chinese. Yes, there's still that China situation brewing. Remember the CCP who is preparing to go to war with the Americans? Yes, they're still there, and they're still ready to invade Taiwan. What else do we got going on here? British chief is on alert for Russia deploying nuclear weapons, yada, yada, yada. What else is new? We got the price of gasoline increasing once again. I think we're supposed to see some inflation numbers in the not so distant future. Is that in the next 48 hours? I'm not sure. Gazprom has made a very grim prediction for Europe. Europe may lack about 800 million cubic meters of gas per day, which represents a third of EU's total consumption, and their facilities will only be 5% full by March, just in time to do it all again when the ground starts to thaw. What else do we got going on here? So the Russians apparently have arrested 8 people in connection with that bombing of the Kerch Bridge in Crimea. Apparently 5 of them were Russian. There was a couple of Ukrainians and an Armenian. It'll be interesting to see who the Russians claim orchestrated that whole thing. There's been some rumblings that the MI6, that is the British intelligence services, could have had something to do with it, but that's pure hearsay coming from me. We got the aluminum price surging after the White House has indicated that they're going to potentially ban Russian aluminum. So ban. Just expect the price of everything to skyrocket. You have U.S. firms pulling their staff from China's main chip makers. So this is leading to an economic war. We are currently in an economic war with China. It's no longer a trade war, it's an economic war. And as soon as they put that blockade around Taiwan, it's going to be an actual war. Okay? Anyways, guys, I just wanted to give you a summarized view of my 6-month predictions, let you know what's going on in the news today. There's a hell of a lot more going on that I've only barely touched on. Let me know what you're seeing in your neck of the woods. If you have any interesting stories, feel free to send them to me at canadianprepper@hotmail.com. Stay safe, keep prepping, because winter is right around the corner. Even though we're seeing temperatures that are much higher than average, it's kind of leveled off now, and it's supposed to get a lot warmer next week. It's only a matter of time before the first snow falls, and we're huddled around a fire to keep warm. In fact, we're going to be doing videos in the next week or so with respect to off-grid power sources and ways to keep warm. I will say, if you're looking for a semi-permanent wood stove, there are plenty of options, do-it-yourself options, that you can, convert old bins or what are those 55-gallon drums into. There's cheap ones that you can get off Amazon. We sell the more premium Winterwell brand at CanadianPreparedness.com, but we don't ship those overseas because they're just way too heavy. But there's a lot of options that you can get right now with respect to that. We're also going to be testing out a new off-grid power system by Zendur. And one thing to note about the price of these portable lithium battery systems is the price on those is about to skyrocket as well, because the price of lithium is like 10 times what it was last year, and the market hasn't really priced that in yet. So expect some of that in the future. We're going to get back to the preparedness vids. Like I said, it's going to be a lot of me talking in the car type stuff for the next week because the communist cameraman is on paternity leave. Thankfully, his new son is doing very well, looks very good, and I'm sure he's got the spirit of Marx. He's representing that spirit of Marx. So we're going to try to have to convert him, bring him over to the other side, or at least to the middle, because that's what we're all about. We're all about taking the middle road here and being moderate, because that's how we can get the best understanding of what's going on right now. And if you don't know what's going on right now, you don't know what's coming in the future. Let me know what your predictions are for the next 6 months. Let me know what you think the world is going to look like in spring of 2023. I'm curious. Thanks for watching, guys. Take care. Canadian Prepper out.